review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is a mother of two, wife, former Olympia champion, and a globally recognized fitness and wellness expert with over 15 years of experience. No other than Miss Natalia Mello.
Hello, hello, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Nathalia. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Of course. So, hello, everybody. I'm Nathalia Melo. I'm a mother of two. I'm a wife. I'm a globally recognized fitness coach. With over 15 years of experience, I have helped over 5,000 women, have spoken in over 30 countries, been featured in magazines around the world. And I have won the biggest bodybuilding competition in the world, which is the Olympia. And after having my kids, it was a little bit of my come to Jesus moment because in order for you to, compete at the level that I competed with the Olympia, it requires a level of extreme that a lot of times I came to realize do not align with a lot like a regular life in the sense of maintaining a career and having small kids and having a spouse and wanting to have a life. And that's where I've noticed that a lot of women stay stuck on. They keep on trying to do things that worked before in a new season of life, and then they keep on failing and they don't understand why. And that's kind of what drove me to become a coach and have a multidisciplinary team with registered dietitian, licensed counselor, because it requires all of that to understand the transitions that life does go through.
Miss Natalia Mello, thank
Love
you
the
so
clap.
much for
Love the clap.
sharing your knowledge to the world. What's the fundamental mismatch between the current model of health and fitness industry and the realities of a busy woman's life?
Oh, this is such a great question. I think that the biggest disconnect is there are many. But I'm going to start with the most fundamental one, which is that a lot of the things that are being talked about on social media and are being, you know, uh, held to the highest standard, they are just the trees. They are not the forest. And what I mean by that is that people are getting lost in the details of things and without knowing how to master the basics. And an analogy, for example, that I could make in relation to a book, you'd be trying to write a 500-page book when you do not know how to string a sentence together. You first need to know how to string a sentence together, and then elevate a little bit to a better grammar, and then we can talk about writing a book. And what I'm seeing is that a lot of times people are starting from writing the book without the foundation of knowing how to write. So that's kind of what is happening a lot in the fitness space. People are getting distracted by anti-inflammatory diets and the detox here, the detox there, when their sleep is terrible. They are not eating in a way that is aligned with their goals from a caloric consumption standpoint, from the amount that they eat. Just because something is healthy doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to support fat loss. And then we also have the extremes on the perception of, like, goodness forbid you talk about wanting to lose weight, but the reality is that today we are looking at a demographic in the United States where 73% of the population is either overweight or obese. So we cannot talk about health, we cannot talk about wellness without talking about fat loss. And it's almost like people, they're talking about it more explicitly as their goal. They're being shamed, and it's like, oh, you need to be positive, you need to love yourself just the way you are. Well, you can love yourself and still want to become better and still want to get healthier, and that is going to have a trickle down effect to many different areas of your life.
Very well said, Miss Natalia. Beautifully articulated. We know time is limited, but what are the less obvious systemic failures of the industry when it comes to serving women, juggling careers, families, and caregiving, and etc.
Love that. Being short-sighted, I think would be the main thing. And what I mean by that is, whenever we're talking about health and fitness, it's not something that is a week thing. It's not a 4 week thing. It's not a 30-day challenge thing. It's a for life thing, because ultimately the end goal is the coffin and trying to get to push that as far away as possible. So, you know, maybe whenever you were in college, you had time to train 2 3 hours a day and, go for a run to quote unquote burn off the calories and then starve yourself for a few days, and then all problems were solved. But is that strategy really sustainable, this more extreme strategy, right now, when most women are working full time and then they have to come home to kids and still take care of their house, and they have a spouse, and then there is, kids sports involved, like even like logistically speaking, you those women probably don't even have the time to dedicate that they used to, but they keep on trying to use the extreme strategies that they used to use when they had 3 hours to spend training, when they could get away with, you know, eating nothing because they didn't have as much of a demanding career. So I think that the biggest thing that is being perpetuated right now that is keeping women stuck is the idea of quick fixes, the idea of quick results, because they go into something that gives the quick results, but it's not sustainable. And then obviously they're going to fall off of that because it doesn't align with their lives. And then they feel like a failure. And then this cycle starts again. And then there is shame associated with that. So how can we meet women where they're at and give them a strategy that aligns with the life that they're currently in setting the right expectations that maybe the results are not going to come as fast, but they will come. And I think that setting that expectations and having that conversation, and you don't have to go to the gym 5 days a week, you don't have to eat 1,000 calories a day. What if you are eating 1,600 calories a day and you're going to the gym 3 times a week, but you're able to do that consistently, time over time, because it is aligned with your life. So I think that this is probably like the biggest issue that we currently have in the fitness and wellness industry.
Miss Nathalia, how does the industry's frequent reliance on rigid perspective programs ignore the biological, hormonal, and lifestyle variability among women?
You have some good questions today. I love it. Very good
Thank you.
question. Yeah. I think that the idea of quick fix is the thing that is holding, like getting the way of progress. Because, for example, there is always someone coming out with like this one bit of information that is like going to change the life. But what they forget to say is that that little detail is like 1% of the bigger picture. So you have a woman who has a career, is already stressed with that, has a spouse, comes with ups and downs, and then you have kids that have their demands, and then now they're stressing over the 1% that doesn't really move the needle all that much. And because they're not seeing the results, they get frustrated, and then they fall off the wagon because it's kind of like, what's the point? And then they go to extremes, which what I mean by that is like over restriction of food, like working out an amount of time that does not align with their life. And then you start to have binge eating behaviors, emotional eating, because they're constantly being triggered by the over restriction. So it just becomes that snowball that I feel like women don't realize how much it impacts their day to day life, how much it impacts their careers. Like we've worked with attorneys that said that they wouldn't go to a trial, or they, would pass the case to an associate because they didn't feel comfortable standing in court because their suits didn't fit anymore. I've had women say that they haven't taken photos with their kids for years because they don't like how they look. So it isn't just about, the looks. It's about how it is impacting the different areas of your life and how you're able to show up for the people that you love.
Totally agree with you, Miss Nathalia. How does the sheer cognitive burden and decision fatigue experienced by busy women make complex diet and exercise regimes feel impossible?
Because you like your questions are very good. Like honestly, I love them because they're always having to think about it. Like the barrier of entry, like novelty is good. As humans, we love novelty, but at the same time that we love novelty, novelty creates more friction because it has more steps. So the more steps that you add to a process, the more points of failure there are. So, for example, if that woman can only eat this specific type of food, and God forbid she's allowed to, go to Chick-fil-A because that's always available, and because that's the life.
Yes.
That if that is the extreme guidelines that we are giving a woman that actually has a life, you're not preparing that person for life. You're preparing that for a utopic reality that is temporary, but the shoe is going to drop at some point, and then it keeps on impacting women on like how they feel about themselves. It's kind of like, why can I not do this? Why am I such a failure? Why do I suck at sticking with this? But what if the problem is not them? What if the problem is the strategy that they're using that keeps them like exhausted? Like for example, let's say that I have a nurse or a doctor who, you know works shifts, and then they get told by somebody, it's like, oh my goodness, like you're not allowed to eat after 6 o'clock because it's bad for you. Side note, it's not bad for you, it's perfectly fine. But these blanket statements, how is it that someone like a doctor who works shifts, works, let's say, from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., how is it a realistic expectation to have from that person that is going to be up overnight to stop eating at 6 o'clock and be a functioning human being? Do you see what I'm saying? So a lot of the advice lacks context to each individual's reality, and that is keeping women stuck. Like, for example, oh, like we've worked with a lady who was a sommelier, somebody who tastes wine. How am I going to tell that person, oh, you absolutely cannot drink ever and ever because if you do, you suck? She might be able to do that for a period of time, but ultimately it is her job. So a lot of the blanket statements are keeping people more confused and more handicapped than if we teach them how to build a foundation that aligns with their lives. Like for example, let's say that we get someone who loves fast food. What if we make a compromise, and instead of that person having fast food 5 days a week, we're like, can we reduce that to 3 times a week? Isn't that progress?
Yes.
So I think that this is what is keeping a lot of women stuck in a loop, is the absolute guidelines that lack context to each individual's reality.
Very well said, Miss Nathalia. Again, beautifully articulated. Why do 30-minute workouts often fail busy women in practice? Is it really just the 30 minutes, or how can a solutions address the total time cost?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you ask it again?
Yes, why do 30-minute workouts often fail for busy women in practice?
Why do they fail?
Yes.
I think that many times than not is because they are following something that is arbitrary, meaning they just go on the internet and they find something, oh, it's 30 minutes, and they do it. But there
Yes.
is no it's I think an analogy that I could make, it would be like, oh, let me get in a car and drive for 30 minutes without a clear path from beginning to end. Does that make sense? So,
Makes
and
sense.
that's something that I even tell some of our clients is like, have you ever been lost? And the person's like, oh yeah. And I'm like, right. Whenever you're lost, do you drive fast or slow? And everybody says that they drive slow. And that's the same thing with your fitness journey. If you're just trying to piece things together without having a clear path and a clear journey to where you're going, there is very little to hold you accountable to yourself because you don't even know if that's going to work. You're just trying to piece things together. It's kind of like, if I want to bake a cake, oh yeah, it needs flour, and then I just start throwing a whole bunch of stuff. There is no recipe. They're just things. And then whenever you're just doing things that you don't even know if it's going to work, why are you going to be motivated? And you're going to make compromise and take away from things that you know that you're good at, for example, your job or being a parent, to do the thing that you don't even know if it's going to work. And it becomes an easy decision. I'm going to put the thing that I don't know if it's going to work to the side, and I'm going to focus on the things that I know how to do. And then you just keep on being stuck on that cycle. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, Miss Nathalia. So, as a mother of two wife and a former Olympia champion, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Ooh, well, my short-term goals is to raise decent human beings. With my kids, I have a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, and I think that now in a world of so much outside influence with social media and things like that, I love social media, but I do think that it can be detrimental to kids. I think that keeping a raising good human beings, it's my short term and to an extent a long term goal, and like a more long term goal is to age well with health, to continue to take care of my my health and wellness and my body, so I can be here for my grandkids and my grandkids kids, or as long as I can, doing everything that I can on my side of the equation to ensure that. And I think that that's also another piece of the puzzle that a lot of people miss the boat, is that the conversation that we're having is not just about the aesthetics and the physique or looking X, Y, and Z. It's about the investment of time and effort that you're putting now to ensure that you have quality of life as you age, especially for women.
Let's empower women all over the world. And good luck to your goals, Miss Natalia, and looking forward for more success. What would be your piece of advice for those people out there? To be a mother, to be a former Olympia champion, as well as a coach.
What would be my advice for them to keep on performing at a high level?
Yes, please.
Set goals, set clear goals, but also understand that the journey to get to the goal is not going to be perfect. I think that this is one of the biggest challenges for high achieving women, is to accept that it's not going to be perfect. And whenever you start to accept that it's not going to be perfect, you stop going back to square one. You just have a little bit of a trip up, and then you get up and you keep on going, instead of just throwing your hands off up in the air and staying stuck on that all or nothing mentality, which I have been on. I have been in when I competed, and after a lot of work and a lot of help from professionals, I have been able to get to a place to where perfection, yeah, like, am I a perfectionist to an extent, but also learning how to accept that life is going to life and that you cannot control everything. You are going to get sick, your kids are going to get sick, and maybe somebody, I don't know, like, there is somebody that you need something that you need to do in your house, and maybe you cannot get to the gym that day, then you can always go the next day. So never look at the journey as from absolute lenses, like lens of absolute, kind of like, oh, I missed today, that's it, I messed up, and that's it forever, because that's not a reflection of reality.
Thank you for your advice, Miss Natalia. And can you please recommend a book that influenced your journey?
Ooh, just one.
Just,
Just one. I really like The Gap in the Gain.
yes.
The Gap in the Gain is probably up there, m- one of the most eye-opening books that I've ever read, by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Have you read it, The Gap in the Gain?
Not yet.
No,
But
you,
for sure, I will.
yeah, put it on your list, because it really is a very, very good book. All the books by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan are very good. There is another one.
Yes.
Who Not How is another one that they have done together. And it really is about understanding how to operate from a place of gratitude rather than a place of lack. Because if you're always, thinking with the mindset of like, oh, if I don't have this, poor me, and I suck because I don't do this, you're always operating from a place of the gap rather than focusing on what is going right for you. And the way that they explain is like quite mind-blowing, and it really makes sense. So that book really transformed things for me.
Mind blowing indeed. And thank you so much for your recommended book. Miss Nathalia, how can solutions practically integrate with the woman's hormonal cycle and energy fluctuations instead of fighting against them?
So the current evidence from a like cycle syncing, which is what is all over social media, where you're syncing your periods to the way that you train. The evidence is not there to support that kind of training or that kind of periodization on the things that you do. With that being said, whenever we're talking, for example, about menopause or perimenopause and the hormonal fluctuations that do happen as women start to age, I think that the way that the communication is being made currently, I'm not a fan because it almost makes women feel powerless. It's kind of like, yep, it's the hormones. It is what it is, and you just kind of like have to accept. And I don't think that it really takes takes women out of the driver's seat of their lives, their bodies, their future. I feel like a much better message is, here is the thing that it is going to happen. You cannot, like, if a woman is going to age, she's going to go through that. What are the things you cannot control? The hormones it, themselves. Like, you cannot go there and be like, oh, I'm not going to go through menopause, I'm not going to go through perimenopause. It just is, it is going to happen. But what if we change the mentality and the mindset to, you know what, I cannot control that, but what are the things that I can do consistently? Can I eat healthily consistently in a way that aligns with my goals? Can I, at least try to have a routine that might put me in a better place to have a good night of sleep, even if my hormones are trying to keep me up? Can I exercise and show up to the gym, even if it is not going to be a 30-minute workout, just a 15-minute workout because I'm tired because I didn't sleep well? Can I be intentional about going for a walk? So I feel like a lot of the focus has been placed on what you cannot do rather than what you can. In the moment that we succumb to, oh, these are all the things that I cannot do, then what's the point? We're completely removing agency from people. And I don't think that that's a good way to live.
Indeed, interesting topic, Miss Nathalia. But before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 is in fifth season as well. Geography 101 of fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 review and Music 101 in its fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Nathalia, if you could implement one sweeping change across the entire health and fitness industry tomorrow to a better serve busy woman, what would it be?
Ooh, that is a deep question. Um, I think that it would be to stop with anything that promise quick results, because that's what is keeping women stuck in a loop. Bringing back the idea of sustainable, continuous, consistent change. rather than a quick change over a short period of time that is hard to maintain.
Miss Nathalia Melo, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy as well as your business or any projects that you are doing right now?
Thank you so much. Well, you guys can find my podcast. It's called Unfiltered Fit Life Podcast. You can also find me on Instagram at Nathalia Melo Fit. And the Natalia, my mom tried to be funny and she put a TH there on the Natalia. So it's Nathalia Melo, Melo Fit, FIT. Send me a message. Tell me if you have any questions about this podcast or anything that I said. If you want more clarity, I'm the one who answers my messages. I love connecting with listeners. So send me a message there. I would love to chat and offer you any resource that I might have that can help you where you're at right now.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Nathalia Mello because if you support her, more and more and more empowering episode of the podcast itself, more and more empowering coaching to come, and for sure, more and more empowering business to come. So, Miss Nathalia, please, thank you so much, and please come back and let's talk about another topic about fitness for women. And thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me. Bye bye, everyone.
More to come, people. See you soon.